That young man, what's his name?
Everybody knows him. That's Tintin.
Howdy there, folks. The Adventures of Tintin is the latest attempt by filmmakers to use the process of motion capture to more expertly craft animation for more enhanced realism than traditional animation techniques will normally allow. Produced by Peter Jackson and directed by Steven Spielberg, The Adventures of Tintin tells the story of a seemingly wealthy young journalist whom, along with his helpful dog Snowy, goes on adventures around the world to solve mysteries, find hidden treasures, and stop evil villains from carrying out their sinister deeds. Occasionally assisting Tintin are two detectives, Thompson and Thompson. While they're both incompetent and they're present mostly for the comic relief, they manage to help Tintin out when he needs it the most, eventually leading to the resolution of the story. Now, I just put the fixings in my still and left my tractor running, so let's get this over with quickly. Well, the most positive things about this film are its action sequences and photorealistic animation. The action sequences are big, sprawling, and fun, while the animation is superb and well rendered. At times you'll think you're watching a live action film, but then other times you tend to notice little imperfections, such as the movement of the characters. It's a tiny flaw, and one that doesn't matter all that much, but it does tend to take you out of that photorealistic frame of mind. The voice acting is mostly well done. It feels humdrum at times without much depth, but the execution is good and the actors do bring some believability to the characters.
Archibald Haddock.
How's your thirst for adventure, Captain?
Out of all of them, the best performance is Andy Serkis as Captain Haddock, who seems to have more dimension than the star of the film. He's the only character in the film who you feel sympathy towards, which is amazing considering the lack of character development. His role in the film is explored probably much more than anybody else's because of his integral ties to the plot of the film. The most disappointing things about the film is its structure and character development, or lack thereof. You see, modern audiences, at least the ones that this film is aiming at, are mostly unfamiliar with Tintin and his adventures. He first appeared in comic strips in the 1930s by Belgian artist Hergé. The character's popularity proved worthwhile, and later on was adapted into a couple of small feature films, a couple of animated films, and 2 animated series. So it's fair to say that Tintin has never really been given the grand big screen treatment by Hollywood, and that he probably isn't all that familiar to most people, perhaps only in name. This in turn leads me to wonder why this film wasn't a character study, or at least partly an introduction film. Sure, we learned a little bit about Tintin through the context of what he does, but as a character we never learned to grow with him or connect with him in any way, nor any of the other characters, save for Captain Haddock. The trouble with that is that we've come to see a movie called The Adventures of Tintin, not The Adventures of a Recovering Alcoholic. Speaking of which, I better check my still. That's the good stuff right there. So in other words, the film is exclusively about its plot central character and not its lead. We're simply thrust into the plot with Tintin, who we know nothing about without any real sense of build-up. Everything just happens matter-of-factly and just moves on to the next thing. Now this would work in a film with a pre-established character, but in a film that's almost entirely plot-driven, it doesn't. Consequently, the film feels more like a sequel than a first film in a series. It has all the trappings of, you've seen this all before, so we don't need to explain it again. It doesn't help matters much that the film lacks a narrative structure. Because of the lack of character development, we're taken from an expository scene to an action set piece and then back again. And this happens over and over, scene after scene throughout the film. And as a result, the action is mercilessly plot-driven and not character-driven, meaning we don't care. I found myself bored most of the time because I wasn't groomed to care about the characters and what was going on in the story. The plot itself was pretty whimsical. It could have been fun if the structure surrounding it had been more penetrable. Speaking of which, I need to call my sister. The most shocking aspect about all of this is that the film was made by perfectly capable filmmakers. Steven Spielberg directed it, Peter Jackson produced it, and Edgar Wright co-wrote the screenplay. Now, I've never read the original comics, so I can't comment on their structure, but if their main drive was the plot and not character, then it was a mistake to try and copy that structure for a film. Don't work at all. Now, I have to emphasize that these are all purely my opinions, because the general consensus about the movie is that it's fantastic. It received mostly positive reviews upon release, but unfortunately didn't make much of a dent at the box office. Despite that, it won for Best Animated Film, so some good came out of it, I guess. Now, I don't want to seem like I'm just being totally negative and that I'm completely against this film, because I'm not. I thought the film was charming, and I like it that people seem to like the movie despite its flaws. However, from a filmmaking perspective on how it's all put together, it has its flaws. And those flaws are sort of baffling from a project like this with this particular filmmaking team. My hope for a sequel, and I'm sure there'll be one, despite the lack of box office success, would be to address these issues and make a more solid narrative. All the pieces are already there to make a fun and enjoyable action-adventure movie, which Steven Spielberg has proved he could make in the past. Just make sure to find for us a reason to care about the story and its characters. Then I'll be happy. I'll be happier than a puppy with 2 Peters.
Did you hit anything?
Oh dear.
Silence, Tintin!
Well, I'm gonna go now. Tractor's starting to overeat, and I better check that still before... Ah, shit!